Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling confused, guilty, or somehow responsible for something you never did? Have you ever agreed to something you did not want to agree to, only to later sit alone and wonder how you were talked into it? Have you ever felt emotionally drained after dealing with a specific person, as if your energy was quietly siphoned away without visible conflict? What if I told you that in many of those moments, you were not weak? You were psychologically maneuvered. Manipulation is rarely loud or obvious. It does not always come with shouting, threats, or dramatic ultimatums. It is subtle. It is strategic. It is often wrapped in charm, concern, affection, authority, intelligence, or even victimhood. The most dangerous manipulators do not control you with force. They control your perception. They influence your emotional state. They distort your internal compass until you start questioning yourself. And the most frightening part is this: most people do not even realize it is happening while it is happening. Today, you are going to see behind the curtain. You are going to understand how manipulation works at a psychological level. Because once you see a tactic clearly, it begins to lose its power over you. Welcome to Cognitive Crown. This is Psychology of Manipulation: 10 dark psychology techniques used by manipulators and how to defend yourself. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how these tactics operate, why they are effective on the human mind, and most importantly, how to protect your boundaries, your clarity, and your peace. Let's continue. Technique number 1. Gaslighting. What if someone could slowly convince you that your own memory cannot be trusted? Imagine remembering a conversation clearly. You recall the tone. You remember the exact words. Then the other person calmly says that never happened. You insist. They deny. They stay composed. They look at you as if you are exaggerating or being dramatic. Over time, something begins to shift inside you. You stop defending your memory as strongly. You begin to doubt your recollection. You question your emotional reactions. You start thinking, maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I overreacted. That is gaslighting. Gaslighting is a psychological manipulation tactic where someone deliberately makes you question your perception, memory, or reality. The term became widely known from the film Gaslight, where a husband manipulates his wife into believing she is losing her sanity. But this is not just a cinematic concept. It happens in romantic relationships. It happens between parents and children. It happens in friendships. It happens in workplaces. A manipulator may deny facts, twist events, or subtly rewrite history. They may say things like, "You're imagining things. You always misunderstand. That's not what I said. You're too emotional. You're remembering it wrong." The goal is not just to win an argument. The goal is to destabilize your internal certainty. Because if they control your perception, they control your decisions. If they control your sense of reality, they control your behavior. Defense strategy number 1. The moment you feel consistent confusion around the same person, take it seriously. Start documenting reality. Write down important conversations. Save messages. Pay attention to patterns, not just apologies. Manipulators rely on emotional fog. Clarity is your shield. If someone repeatedly makes you doubt your own memory while other people do not, that is not random. That is a tactic. Trust consistent evidence over persuasive denial. Technique number 2. Love bombing. What if someone gives you so much attention, affection, and admiration that it feels almost unreal? In the beginning, they text you constantly. They call you their soulmate within weeks. They say they have never felt this connection before. They shower you with compliments. They promise a future immediately. It feels intense. It feels magical. It feels like you have finally been fully seen and understood. This is love bombing. Love bombing is when someone overwhelms you with affection and validation in order to create rapid emotional dependency. It activates powerful chemicals in your brain like dopamine, which fuels excitement, and oxytocin, which deepens bonding. You feel attached very quickly, much faster than emotional trust can realistically develop. But here is the shift that reveals the strategy. Once you are emotionally invested, the attention decreases. The affection becomes inconsistent. The warmth turns unpredictable. Now you find yourself chasing the version of them from the beginning. You try to earn back the intensity. You adjust your behavior. You compromise your boundaries. You overanalyze what changed. And that is the trap. They created emotional addiction. They set the emotional baseline unrealistically high, then slowly withdraw it to create craving. We are only 3 techniques in, and you can already see the pattern. Manipulation works by targeting perception, emotion, and attachment. It works by creating confusion, dependency, and anxiety. But awareness interrupts control. Technique number 4. Guilt tripping. What if someone could influence your behavior without raising their voice, without threatening you, without forcing you, simply by making you feel guilty? You say no to a request. They respond with, "After everything I've done for you." You set a boundary. They reply, "I guess I just don't matter to you." You prioritize your own needs. They suddenly appear deeply hurt, disappointed, or emotionally wounded. And just like that, the situation shifts. You are no longer making a clear decision based on your values. You are reacting to guilt. Guilt tripping is a manipulation tactic where someone uses obligation, past favors, sacrifice narratives, or emotional pressure to control your choices. It works because most people want to be perceived as kind, loyal, grateful, and fair. Manipulators understand this. They exploit your desire to be a good person. They subtly frame your independence as selfishness. They frame your boundaries as betrayal. They frame your growth as abandonment. Instead of respecting your autonomy, they attach emotional consequences to it. Over time, something dangerous happens. You begin to associate self-respect with selfishness. You begin to associate boundaries with cruelty. You begin prioritizing their comfort over your mental health. And the manipulation becomes internal. You start policing yourself before they even have to. Defense strategy number 4. Separate responsibility from emotion. You are responsible for your actions. You are not responsible for managing someone else's emotional reaction every time you make a healthy decision. When guilt arises, pause. Ask yourself one powerful question. Did I actually do something wrong, or did I simply disappoint someone who wanted control? Disappointment is not the same as injustice. Someone feeling upset does not automatically mean you were unfair. Healthy relationships respect the word no. They may feel temporary disappointment, but they do not weaponize it. If someone consistently uses guilt to override your boundaries, that is not love. That is leverage. And awareness breaks the leverage. Technique number 5. Projection. What if the accusations thrown at you were not attacks, but confessions? A person who lies repeatedly may constantly accuse you of dishonesty. Someone who secretly flirts behind your back may obsessively question your loyalty. Someone deeply insecure may criticize your competence. Someone who manipulates may call you manipulative. This is projection. Projection is a psychological defense mechanism where someone attributes their own flaws, impulses, fears, or behaviors onto another person. Instead of confronting their internal conflict, they externalize it. Instead of facing guilt, they relocate it. Psychologically, this reduces internal discomfort. If they can convince themselves that you are the dishonest one, they no longer have to confront their own dishonesty. If they label you as selfish, they avoid examining their own self-centered behavior. You become the container for what they cannot accept about themselves. The danger is repetition. If you hear the same accusation often enough, your brain begins to consider it. Even without evidence, repetition creates familiarity. and familiarity can feel like truth. Over time, you may begin questioning yourself. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I am difficult. Maybe I am insecure. This is how projection slowly distorts identity. Defense strategy number 5. Do not immediately internalize repeated accusations. Step back and examine patterns objectively. Ask yourself, is there consistent, concrete evidence behind this claim? Or is it a cycle of blame without proof? Look at behavior, not just words. Projection often reveals more about the speaker than the target. When you stop absorbing labels that do not belong to you, the tactic weakens. Truth does not fear inspection. If something is real, it will withstand calm analysis. If it collapses under scrutiny, it was likely projection. Technique number 6. Triangulation. What if someone could destabilize you simply by introducing a third presence into your conflict? Instead of addressing you directly, they say, "Everyone agrees with me." They compare you to someone else. They mention how another person would never act the way you do. They casually bring up an ex, a coworker, a sibling, or even an imaginary group. Suddenly, the dynamic shifts. Now you feel isolated. Now you feel evaluated. Now you feel replaceable. Now you feel competition. This is triangulation. Triangulation occurs when a manipulator brings a third party, real or implied, into a situation to create insecurity, rivalry, or division. It shifts focus away from the actual issue and onto comparison. Instead of discussing behavior directly, the conversation becomes about approval and status. This tactic is common in toxic romantic relationships. It is common in workplaces where managers compare employees to create pressure. It is common in families where siblings are pitted against each other. Triangulation keeps you off balance. When you feel you must compete for basic validation, you become easier to control. You begin adjusting yourself not based on principles, but based on fear of being replaced. Defense strategy number 6. Refuse to compete for basic respect. If someone constantly compares you to others, calmly redirect the focus. Say, "I would rather discuss this directly between us." Or, if there is an issue, let's address it clearly. Healthy relationships are built on communication, not competition. They do not require you to outperform others to earn stability. When you refuse to enter the triangle, the structure collapses. Because triangulation only works if you step into rivalry. Stability is your advantage. Technique number 7. Playing the victim. What if the person causing harm always appears to be the one suffering most? You confront them about hurtful behavior. They immediately shift the narrative. They bring up their trauma. They talk about how misunderstood they are. They remind you how stressful their life has been. They become emotional. Suddenly, the focus changes. You are no longer discussing what they did. You are comforting the person who hurt you. This is strategic victimhood. Playing the victim allows manipulators to avoid accountability while appearing emotionally vulnerable. It redirects attention from their behavior to their pain. It activates your empathy. And if you are compassionate, you become especially vulnerable. You do not want to appear cruel. You do not want to dismiss someone's suffering. So you soften your stance. You minimize your complaint. You drop the issue entirely. And once again, accountability disappears. The cycle repeats. Defense strategy number 7. Compassion does not require self-abandonment. You can acknowledge someone's pain without excusing harmful behavior. The key is staying anchored to the original issue. Instead of debating their emotions, calmly return to the behavior. Say, "I understand that was difficult for you, but we still need to address what happened." This keeps empathy intact while preserving boundaries. Healthy individuals can hold two truths at once. They can recognize their own pain and still take responsibility. If someone consistently avoids accountability by shifting into victim mode, that is not vulnerability. It is deflection. And once you recognize deflection, you stop getting pulled into emotional redirection. Empathy and boundaries can coexist. And when they do, manipulation loses one of its strongest weapons. Technique number 8. Future faking. What if someone keeps painting a beautiful future in front of you, but somehow that future never actually arrives? They talk about the house you will buy together. They describe the trips you will take. They promise loyalty, commitment, partnership, growth. They speak about long-term plans with confidence and detail. It sounds vivid. It sounds certain. It sounds secure. But when the time comes for action, nothing materializes. There is always a reason. Not now. Soon. After this phase. After this problem. After this stress. After things calm down. Future faking is when someone uses grand promises about the future to secure your loyalty in the present. It is not about building a life. It is about buying time. It creates hope. And hope is powerful. Hope keeps you invested. Hope keeps you patient. Hope keeps you tolerating behavior you would normally question. Psychologically, your brain responds to anticipated rewards almost as strongly as real ones. When someone describes a positive future vividly, your mind begins experiencing it emotionally. Dopamine is released not only when you receive a reward, but when you expect one. The promise itself becomes intoxicating. You become attached to potential instead of evidence. You hold on to who they could be instead of who they consistently are. And that gap between words and actions slowly drains you. Defense strategy number 8. Judge patterns, not promises. Words are easy. Consistency is rare. Instead of asking what they say about the future, ask what they are building today. Are their actions aligned with their promises? Do their behaviors reflect commitment? Real partnership shows up in repeated effort, not poetic speeches. If the future is always discussed, but never constructed, you are being emotionally extended on credit that never gets paid. Hope is beautiful. But hope without evidence becomes self-deception. Technique number 9. Intermittent reinforcement. What if the unpredictability is the very reason you cannot walk away? Some days they are affectionate and warm. Some days they are distant and cold. Some days they praise you intensely. Some days they criticize you harshly. The reward is inconsistent. And that inconsistency is psychologically powerful. Intermittent reinforcement is one of the strongest conditioning mechanisms known in behavioral psychology. It is the same principle that makes gambling addictive. When rewards are unpredictable, the brain releases higher spikes of dopamine in anticipation. You do not know when the next positive moment will come. So you stay. You try harder. You analyze more. You invest deeper. Your brain becomes hooked on chasing the next high. You tolerate the emotional lows because you remember the emotional highs. You hold on because maybe tomorrow will feel like it did in the beginning. Manipulators use inconsistency strategically. When affection becomes rare, it feels more valuable. When validation is unpredictable, it feels more meaningful. But what feels meaningful is often just neurological conditioning. Defense strategy number 9. Stability is more important than intensity. Pay attention to emotional patterns, not isolated moments. Healthy relationships feel secure and predictable. They are not chaotic and addictive. If you constantly feel anxious about where you stand, that uncertainty is not passion. It is conditioning. Ask yourself a grounding question. Do I feel peaceful here, or do I feel on edge? Your nervous system is intelligent. Choose environments where your body can relax instead of constantly brace for impact. Emotional safety is not boring. It is healthy. Technique number 10. Authority and confidence manipulation. What if someone sounds so certain that you automatically assume they must be right? They speak firmly. They rarely hesitate. They present opinions as absolute facts. They reference their status, experience, education, or position of power. Their tone carries dominance. And without realizing it, you begin doubting yourself. Humans are wired to respond to authority. From childhood, we are conditioned to obey confident figures. Teachers, parents, leaders, experts. Our brains often associate certainty with competence. But confidence is a presentation style. It is not proof of truth. Manipulators understand this bias. They use unwavering tone to override your internal doubt. They may avoid providing real evidence. They may dismiss questions. They may frame disagreement as disrespect. But their delivery creates compliance. Volume does not equal validity. Position does not equal integrity. Certainty does not equal accuracy. Defense strategy number 10. Slow down automatic respect. You can acknowledge someone's authority or experience without surrendering critical thinking. Ask clarifying questions. Request specifics. Take time before agreeing to important decisions. Notice how they respond to being questioned. True leaders welcome dialogue. They are not threatened by inquiry. Manipulators demand submission disguised as respect. Healthy authority empowers you. Manipulative authority diminishes you. Bringing it all together, now step back and observe the full pattern. Gaslighting distorts your perception. Love bombing accelerates attachment. The silent treatment creates anxiety. Guilt tripping weaponizes your empathy. Projection shifts blame. Triangulation creates insecurity. Victim playing avoids accountability. Future faking sells illusion. Intermittent reinforcement builds addiction. Authority manipulation overrides critical thinking. Different tactics. One core objective: control. The most powerful defense against manipulation is self-awareness. Manipulation only works when it operates below your conscious detection. Once you recognize the pattern, you interrupt it. When you regulate your emotions, tactics lose leverage. When you value clarity over approval, control weakens. When you are willing to disappoint others instead of betraying yourself, you become extremely difficult to manipulate. The goal is not paranoia. The goal is perception. Not everyone who disagrees with you is manipulating you. Not every conflict is abuse. But repeated psychological distortion is rarely accidental. Trust patterns. Trust consistency. Trust your internal signals when something feels off repeatedly. And most importantly, strengthen your relationship with yourself. Because the stronger your identity, the harder it is for someone to rewrite it. If this video opened your eyes, then it is time to strengthen your psychological armor. Manipulators thrive in ignorance. Awareness is protection. You now understand 10 dark psychology techniques and 10 practical defense strategies that can protect your clarity, your boundaries, and your emotional stability. Rewatch this video if you need to. Take notes. Share it with someone who might be silently struggling. And remember this: the mind that understands manipulation becomes extremely difficult to control. This is Cognitive Crown, where we decode psychology to build mental power, clarity, and self-mastery. Subscribe if you are ready to think deeper, and I will see you in the next video.